In the far edge of the galaxy, where the stars looked colder and darker, there lived many alien civilizations. They traded, they fought, they made empires, and they told stories. Some stories were warnings, some were lessons, and some were only bedtime tales for children. But one story was different. One story was told in whispers, never in full voice. It was the story of the forgotten race. Some called them ghosts. Some called them demons. Others said they were just a myth. They were called humans. For thousands of years, no alien had seen them. Many believed they never existed. Teachers laughed when younglings asked questions. Elders shook their heads and said, "There are no humans. They are just an old lie." The galaxy moved on. Worlds were conquered, new stars were colonized, and the myth of humans became nothing more than dust in forgotten archives. But not all believed the silence. In secret libraries, in hidden records, some fragments of history remained. Old texts spoke of a species that fought with strange courage, that refused to kneel even when outnumbered. They were described as dangerous and stubborn. Some called them a mistake of evolution. Others whispered that the galaxy united once to erase them, and they had vanished into the dark, never to be seen again. Yet on one quiet night, far away from the center of the galaxy, something happened. A signal. It was weak at first, almost like a ripple in deep water. At first, alien scientists thought it was just static, a glitch in the sensors. But the signal repeated. It carried patterns, not natural noise. Rhythms. Codes. In the Grand Chamber of the Zayari Council, the most powerful rulers of that sector listened in silence. The signal was played again and again, echoing across the room. None of them could understand it, yet all of them felt the same unease. The pattern was too precise, too deliberate. And buried within the static was a strange sound. A sound like a voice. The council leader, an old creature with silver skin, spoke softly. This does not belong to us. This belongs to something else." A younger officer leaned forward, his voice shaking. "Council, do you not see? The pattern, the words. It is ancient human language." The chamber fell into silence. No one moved, no one breathed. The name itself carried weight, like a curse. Some members laughed nervously, others shouted in anger. "Impossible! Humans are not real. It is a trick, some rebel faction. Erase this nonsense before it spreads fear." But fear was already spreading. Across fleets, across stations, the rumor traveled like fire. Whispers rose in marketplaces and war barracks. The myth of humans was alive again. Then, the disappearances began. Patrol fleets sent to the edge of space failed to return. Scouts reported seeing shadows in the void, too large and too quiet to be natural. One by one, the reports grew stranger. Ships disabled with no signs of attack. Crews found unconscious but alive, their memories clouded. And in every case, the signal was heard before the silence. Finally, one brave captain took his fleet closer to the source. His name was Captain Ristar of the Zelkar Dominion. He was known as Fearless, a warrior who never believed in old tales. To him, this was nothing but a chance to expose the truth. His ships moved past the black nebula, their sensors stretched wide. For long hours, they saw nothing. Only dead space. Only silence. But then his crew gasped. A shape appeared against the stars. At first, it was mistaken for an asteroid field. But it was too organized, too sharp. One by one, the shapes lit up with cold light. Hulls of metal, smooth and powerful, stretching into the darkness. Dozens. Hundreds. Thousands. An armada. The crew froze. None of them recognized the design, yet something about the ships felt ancient, as if they carried the weight of forgotten centuries. The captain whispered, What are they?" The answer came not from his crew, but from the comms system. A voice, deep and steady, broke through the silence. It spoke in simple words, words no alien had heard for generations. "We remember." The signal cut. The lights of the Armada burned brighter. Engines flared like waking beasts. The void itself seemed to tremble under their presence. Captain Ristar fell back into his chair, his mind racing. These were not rebels. These were not tricks. This was something far worse. The humans were real. The humans had returned. In that moment, the myth shattered. And across the galaxy, fear turned into silence. Every civilization felt the weight of those two words. If humans truly lived, if they had built such a fleet in the shadows of time, then the galaxy would never be the same again. And so, the day began. The day when a forgotten race stepped out of the dark and showed themselves. The day an armada emerged. The day an ancient myth was shattered. The galaxy had been shaken. The signal had spread from one star system to another, and no matter how much the councils tried to silence it, the whispers only grew louder. Every trader, every soldier, every worker in the mines had now heard the same rumor. The humans had returned. In the council chambers of three great empires, leaders argued with rage and fear. Some wanted to prepare their fleets and crush the unknown intruders before panic spread. Others begged to wait, to study, to understand. But even as they argued, more reports arrived. Border stations gone dark. Patrol ships missing. Strange shadows seen in the void. On the outer rim, a massive defense fleet was assembled. Thousands of alien ships formed a wall of steel and fire. Their captains spoke bravely, telling their crews not to fear myths, that the enemy was only flesh and bone like any other. But deep inside, doubt crawled in their hearts. The first real contact came without warning. Sensors picked up movement beyond the nebula where the patrols had vanished. At first, the fleet commanders thought it was pirates or smugglers. But when the images sharpened, no one spoke. The shapes were too large, too silent. They slid through the void like hunters. Their hulls reflected no light, yet their sheer size blocked entire constellations. The alien admiral, a seasoned warrior with scars across his face, gave the order to open communications. His voice was strong, but his hands trembled. A pulse was sent, a greeting in the common galactic code. Seconds turned to minutes. No reply. The admiral tried again, his voice sharper this time. Unknown fleet, identify yourselves. You have entered restricted space. Respond at once or be treated as hostile. For a moment, nothing. The silence stretched so long that some of the alien captains began to relax, thinking perhaps the ships were empty relics. But then the comms system crackled to life. A single voice, low and calm, cut through the static. 2 words. Only 2. We remember. Every ship froze. The words echoed across every deck, in every language. The comms automatically translated them, and still, they carried the same weight. Not a threat. Not an explanation. Just memory. The alien admiral swallowed hard. He knew the old stories, the forbidden records. He knew what these words meant. But his duty forced him to stand tall. He raised his voice. If you are human, you do not belong here. You are a myth. A dead species. Explain yourselves or prepare to be destroyed. The humans did not answer. Instead, their armada moved forward in perfect silence, formation precise as if they were one living organism. Engines glowed softly, not roaring like alien drives, but humming with strange energy. The sheer discipline of their movement sent fear through the alien crews. No wasted motion. No hesitation. Only purpose. The admiral shouted for weapons to be armed. Cannons powered up, shields rose, missiles prepared for launch. The alien wall of steel braced itself for war. But still, the humans did not fire. They simply advanced, row after row, until the entire nebula was filled with their presence. Whispers spread on alien ships. Why don't they attack? What do they want? Why do they move like ghosts? Some soldiers refused to look out the windows, afraid to meet the cold light of human ships. Then something stranger happened. Alien scanners tried to read the human fleet, but the results made no sense. Hulls stronger than neutronium. Energy cores beyond measurement. Heat signatures that shifted like living beings. And most impossible of all, every time the scanners locked on, the readings changed, as if the ships themselves refused to be understood. Fear turned to chaos. Some alien captains begged the admiral to retreat. Others wanted to strike first. But the admiral stood frozen, staring at the shadowy giants closing in. He realized the truth. This was not an enemy that rushed to kill. This was an enemy that remembered. An enemy that waited. On the alien homeworlds, citizens watched in horror as leaked footage spread across networks. Grainy images of massive ships moving silently through the void filled every screen. Mothers held their children close. Soldiers sharpened their blades. Priests whispered ancient prayers. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy felt helpless. And yet, not a single human weapon had fired. Not a single alien ship had been destroyed. The humans came not with fire, but with silence. A silence heavier than war. Back in the council chambers, leaders demanded answers. What do they want? Why now? How can they return when we erased them long ago? But none had answers. None dared to say the truth. Out on the rim, the admiral gave one last order. His voice was tired, broken. Hold your fire. Do not provoke them. His fleet waited, trembling, as the human armada passed through them like a tide of shadows. And when the last human ship faded into the darkness, only fear remained. No battle had been fought, yet the aliens felt defeated. No shots had been fired, yet the myth had already broken their courage. The galaxy now knew one thing with certainty. The humans were real. The humans had returned. And they were not the same as the stories. They were something far worse. The galaxy had seen something it could not explain. A fleet of humans, silent and unstoppable, had crossed the borders of alien space. They had spoken only 2 words, and yet those words carried more power than 1,000 weapons. Everywhere, fear spread. Leaders met in hidden chambers, soldiers whispered in dark corridors, and ordinary people asked the same question. How could this be possible? In the High Council of the Zelkar Dominion, panic ruled the chamber. Admirals argued. Politicians shouted. Some demanded immediate war against the humans. Others begged for peace talks. But deep inside, none of them truly believed they could win either way. They knew something the public did not. They knew the secret hidden for centuries. For the first time, restricted archives were unlocked. Old files, sealed by the hands of ancestors, were displayed before the council. The records were dusty, fragmented, some corrupted, but the truth was clear enough. Humans were not just a story. They were not a ghost tale told to children. They were real. They had lived among the stars long ago. One of the council historians stood in the chamber, his old eyes heavy with shame. His voice cracked as he spoke. The myth was never a myth. Humans existed. They fought us. And we, his words broke, silence filling the hall. Finally, he whispered, we tried to erase them. Gasps filled the room. Even those who suspected the truth were shaken. The council leader demanded more. And so the historian revealed what the archives had hidden. Long ago, humans had risen quickly among the stars. They were not the strongest, nor the most advanced. But they were different. They were stubborn. They fought wars no one else dared to fight. They made allies with species thought too weak to matter. They resisted empires larger than themselves, refusing to bow down. And this defiance spread like fire. Other civilizations began to follow their example. Order broke. Rebellions rose. The great empires of the galaxy began to crumble. So the empires united. They who had been enemies for centuries joined hands for one purpose only, to destroy humanity. Together, they waged a war so brutal that history itself was reshaped. Planets burned. Human colonies were wiped from the stars. And when the last great battle ended, the victors declared it complete. Humanity was gone. Erased. But not all records told the same story. Some suggested the humans did not die. Some said they vanished into the deep void, fleeing into places no empire dared to follow. And for centuries, no one saw them again. Until now. The council chambers were heavy with silence. Every leader felt the same cold truth crawling into their hearts. The humans had not been erased. They had survived. And if they had survived, then all those centuries in hiding must have been used for one thing, becoming stronger. A young admiral rose to speak, his voice bitter. They remember what we did. They remember the war. Do you not see? This Armada is not a myth. It is revenge. Another counselor shook his head. If they wanted revenge, we would already be ash. They passed through our fleets without firing. They could have destroyed us, but they did not. This argument spread like wildfire. Some believed the humans had returned as executioners. Others believed they carried some greater purpose. But none could deny the fear in their hearts. Meanwhile, across alien space, fragments of human history began to leak. Smugglers sold stolen records. Old veterans told half-forgotten tales. Scholars uncovered ruins where human symbols were etched into stone. And every discovery revealed the same truth: humanity had been betrayed. Ordinary citizens, who had once laughed at the myth, now trembled at it. What if the humans had come to punish them all? What if the silence of the Armada was not mercy, but judgment? On the borders, alien fleets continued to watch the human ships with fear. They saw the massive hulls drifting, forming strange patterns. Some said it looked like a net spreading across space. Others said it looked like a warning sign. And yet, no one understood the meaning. Then, one night, the humans broke their silence again. Not with weapons, but with light. Across the void, their ships released signals, ancient broadcasts in long-dead languages. Historians scrambled to decode them. And when they finally succeeded, the words made the galaxy tremble. The humans spoke not of conquest. They spoke of memory. They told of betrayal, of fire, of broken promises. And then they said something no one expected. The galaxy is not safe. The true enemy is coming. The message repeated again and again, across every frequency. Aliens argued, dismissed it as lies, claimed it was a trick to weaken them. But deep inside, many felt the weight of it. The humans had returned not only to remind the galaxy of its crime, but to warn them of something greater. In hidden corners, secret fears grew. What enemy could terrify a race that had survived erasure itself? What horror could force humans to return from the void with such silence? And so, the myth was shattered. Humanity was no longer a bedtime story. They were no longer whispers. They were real. They were powerful. And they carried a secret the galaxy could not yet understand. As the human armada shifted again in the darkness, every alien who watched felt the same dread. If the humans had spoken the truth, then the galaxy was standing on the edge of something far worse than war. The story of the forgotten race was no longer forgotten. It had returned. And with it, the weight of the past and the shadow of the future. The warning of the humans spread like a storm. Their words echoed through every channel: the true enemy is coming. But the galaxy was not ready to listen. Too much fear, too much pride, too much anger still lived inside alien hearts. Some refused to believe. Others believed too much, and that fear made them reckless. In the capital of the Zelkar Dominion, the council split apart. One side shouted that humanity was a liar, using old myths to frighten them. The other side warned that ignoring the humans might doom them all. The chamber filled with chaos until the commander of the border fleet entered, his face pale, his voice heavy. He had seen the human armada with his own eyes. He had felt the silence of their ships pressing against his fleet like a storm before lightning. And he had heard the two words: "We remember." He stood before the council and said, "You do not understand. They did not come to beg. They did not come to threaten. They came to remind us of who they are. If we test them, we will regret it." But his warning was ignored. Soon after, an ambitious admiral from another empire, the Veya Collective, gathered his fleets. He declared to the galaxy that he would prove the humans were nothing but shadows dressed in steel. His words spread across media networks, filling the citizens with false hope. "We will break the human fleet and show the galaxy they are only myths with metal skin." And so, the clash began. On the edge of the nebula, where the humans had been waiting in silence, the Veya Collective arrived with their proudest ships. Thousands of war cruisers, carriers, and dreadnoughts, bristling with weapons, their banners shining bright across the stars. Their soldiers sang war songs. Their commanders shouted speeches of glory. Every eye in the galaxy turned to the border, waiting to see what would happen. The Veya Admiral gave the first order: "Fire!" A wave of missiles, beams, and plasma storms rushed into the void. The stars themselves seemed to burn as the alien fleet unleashed its full power. Explosions lit the darkness, and for a moment, the galaxy thought victory was near. The humans would be shattered. The myth would die. But when the fire cleared, the human ships still stood. Their shields glowed faintly, like suns behind smoke. Not a single vessel had fallen. Not a single hull was scarred. The alien crews froze in disbelief. They had launched their strongest weapons, weapons that had torn apart other empires, yet the humans did not even move. Then, for the first time, the human armada answered. Their ships glowed with pale blue light. Strange patterns crawled across their hulls, runes or codes no alien could understand. Without firing a single missile, the humans released a wave of energy. It was not a weapon of fire, but a storm of silence. Across the Veya fleet, engines shut down. Weapons froze. Shields collapsed. Ships that once burned with pride now drifted powerless in space. No crew was harmed. No life support was cut. But every fleet was disabled, left helpless in the dark. The humans had ended the battle without killing anyone. A voice came through the silence, calm and cold. We are not here for conquest. We are here for truth. The word spread across every comm channel, recorded by soldiers, relayed by spies, shared across worlds. Billions listened, unable to look away. The Veya admiral, humiliated and shaking, shouted at his dead consoles, "Fight back! Fight back!" But nothing responded. His great armada, his proud fleet, had been crushed without a drop of blood spilled. On alien homeworlds, people watched in silence. Children who once laughed at the myth now pressed against their parents. Merchants dropped their goods in markets. Priests stopped in the middle of their chants. The galaxy understood something terrifying. The humans had not just returned. They had come back with power no empire could match. But the humans were not finished. They sent another message, this time longer, heavier with meaning. The galaxy is not ready. You have lived under lies. The true enemy is not us. The true enemy is already moving. Confusion spread. What enemy? What danger could be greater than this? Some leaders dismissed it again as human trickery. But others remembered the archives, the old wars, the predators whispered of in ancient times. Fear grew sharper. The humans then did something unexpected. They projected star maps across space, visible even to naked eyes. Lines of light stretched from system to system, converging in the darkness beyond known space. At the heart of the map, a storm of signals pulsed like a heartbeat. The message was clear. Something was waiting in the void. Something vast. Something deadly. The clash of wills had ended not with destruction, but with revelation. The humans had proved their strength without firing a shot. They had shown mercy where others expected war. And they had placed a choice before the galaxy: keep denying the truth, or prepare for a threat greater than any empire had ever faced. The alien fleets, once proud, now floated powerless, staring into the cold light of the human armada. And in that silence, the galaxy finally understood. Humanity was not a myth. Humanity was not a ghost. Humanity was a storm, and it had returned with purpose. The galaxy was no longer the same. The human armada had faced the proud fleets of the Veya Collective and ended the battle without killing a single soul. Their power was undeniable. Their silence was unbearable. And their message still echoed in the stars: the true enemy is coming. Many leaders tried to ignore it. Some claimed it was only human lies meant to break the galaxy's unity. Others whispered that perhaps the humans had gone mad during their centuries in hiding. But deep inside, even the most stubborn voices trembled. Because the humans had shown something more than power. They had shown restraint. Why would a species that had been betrayed and nearly erased return only to spare their enemies? Why would they hold back? The answer frightened many, perhaps because they were saving their strength for something worse. In the shadows of alien space, human ships released fragments of data. Strange images, broken recordings, incomplete messages filled with static. At first, no one could understand them. But as more signals came, a picture began to form. It showed a darkness moving through space. Not fleets. Not empires. Something older. Something hungrier. Vast shapes crawling between the stars, feeding on living worlds. Energy signatures so large they swallowed entire systems. Beings that left no survivors, no ruins, nothing but silence behind them. The humans called them the Devourers. No alien historian wanted to believe it. But buried in the oldest records, in scripts long ignored, the same name appeared. A predator species, feared in ancient times, believed to be gone forever. The archives spoke of civilizations that disappeared without reason. Empires that fell not to war, but to something unseen. And now, according to the humans, that something was returning. In secret meetings, alien scientists argued over the evidence. Impossible. Nothing that size could survive in the void for so long. Others stared at the human recordings and whispered, "Then how do you explain this?" On distant colonies, strange events began to match the warnings. Entire mining stations went silent overnight. Trade convoys vanished between jump lanes. A star on the edge of known space flickered and died, as if something had drained its very heart. The galaxy began to panic. And for the first time in centuries, the myth of humans was no longer the most frightening story. The enemy they warned of was far worse. Still, pride refused to let go. The Zelkar Dominion called the humans liars. The Veya Collective, humiliated after their defeat, swore that the recordings were fakes. "They mean to control us with fear," their leaders shouted. But even as they spoke, their citizens looked into the dark sky with unease. Because deep down, everyone felt it, the shadows were moving. The humans remained patient. They made no attacks. They conquered no worlds. Instead, their armada positioned itself along the outer edges of known space, as if building a wall. Alien fleets followed at a distance, watching with fear and suspicion. One alien commander asked the question many were too afraid to speak aloud. If this enemy is real, why do the humans not fight them alone? Why do they need us? The answer came days later. A message broadcast on every channel, in every language, from every human ship. "We survived the fire you set upon us. We survived exile in the void. But we did not survive untouched. We learned. We changed. We became stronger. Yet even we cannot face the Devourers alone. They will come for us all. They will come for you. You may hate us. You may fear us. But you cannot ignore what is already moving in the dark." Across the galaxy, silence followed. Ordinary people began to whisper. Maybe the humans are not the enemy. Maybe they are the warning. Others resisted. No. It is a trick. They want to break us. But more and more, eyes turned not toward the humans, but toward the blackness beyond the stars. Then, the first true sign arrived. On the edge of the Andral system, sensors detected something vast. At first, it looked like an asteroid field drifting too fast. But as it moved closer, the truth became clear. Gigantic shapes, organic and unnatural, sliding through space with movements that no machine could make. Their size dwarfed even the greatest dreadnoughts. Their energy signatures pulsed like heartbeats, each wave stronger than the last. The reports spread instantly. Panic erupted. And for the first time, even the loudest alien leaders fell silent. The humans had not lied. The Devourers were real. They were here. On their silent armada, the humans did not celebrate. They did not boast. Instead, their ships lit up with cold light, forming a barrier between the predators and the rest of the galaxy. The human message returned one final time. Stand with us, or fall alone. The galaxy now faced a choice it had never imagined. Trust the race it had betrayed, or face extinction in the dark. And in that moment, every world understood. The return of humanity was not the greatest story. The real story had just begun. The galaxy had no choice. The Devourers were real. Their shapes had been seen moving through the void, swallowing stars and leaving only silence behind. For the first time, the old myth of humans was no longer the most frightening thing. Something darker had awakened. Yet even in the face of this threat, pride was hard to kill. Many leaders resisted. They hated the idea of joining hands with the very species they had once tried to erase. Some called it weakness. Others called it betrayal. But one truth was clear: without unity, none of them would survive. And so, slowly, reluctantly, the first steps were taken. In the shadow of a dead moon, a meeting was held. Human ships hovered in the distance, their silent hulls glowing faint blue. Alien fleets arrived cautiously, weapons half-armed, shields raised. The air between them was thick with mistrust. When the first human commander stepped forward, the galaxy watched in silence. His armor was dark, his voice steady, his words simple. "We are not myths. We are not ghosts. We are the children of Earth. And we are your last chance." The aliens shifted uneasily. Some hissed, others growled, some whispered to their neighbors. But none could deny the presence of the humans. They were real, and their armada was stronger than anything seen before. The humans revealed what they had learned in exile. Maps of the Devourers. Weaknesses in their movements. Ancient tactics developed through centuries of survival. Their data showed how civilizations had been devoured one by one, and how the predators always moved like a tide, slow at first, unstoppable once unleashed. Some alien commanders argued, "We cannot trust them. They could be guiding us into a trap." Others countered, "Would they warn us if they meant to destroy us? Would they stand in front of the Devourers if they sought only revenge?" The debates burned across fleets and councils. But as more evidence arrived, ruined colonies, dead systems, silent stars, the truth grew louder than pride. The first alliance was signed in hesitation. 3 empires, bitter rivals for centuries, agreed to fight beside humanity. More followed reluctantly, not out of trust, but out of fear. They knew they had no other choice. But unity was not easy. When human soldiers trained with alien troops, the differences were clear. Humans were smaller than many species, but their eyes burned with something the others lacked. They fought with stubborn determination, refusing to surrender even in drills. Their tactics were strange, unpredictable, reckless, and yet effective. Alien warriors mocked them at first. Too fragile. Too reckless. Too emotional. But as days passed, the mocking turned into silence. Because the humans never gave up. No matter how many times they were knocked down, they stood again. No matter how hopeless the scenario, they found a way to fight back. In one training session, an alien commander laughed as a human squad faced impossible odds in a simulated battle. But to his shock, the humans turned their weakness into a trap, sacrificing ground, drawing the enemy into a kill zone, and winning against all odds. When asked why they fought that way, the human leader only answered, "Because losing is not an option." The aliens began to understand. Humanity had survived centuries in the dark not because of power, but because of will. And that will now burned brighter than ever. Still, mistrust lingered. At night, in camps and aboard ships, whispers filled the air. What if they betray us when the Devourers are gone? What if they destroy us after the war? But the humans said nothing. They did not defend themselves with words. They let their actions speak. As days turned to weeks, the combined fleets grew stronger. Ships that once faced each other as enemies now stood side by side. Weapons were shared. Strategies were exchanged. And slowly, painfully, the galaxy began to move as one. Then, the human commander spoke to the allied leaders again. His words carried across every channel, to every soldier, every captain, every citizen watching from home. "We are not here for conquest. We are not here for revenge. We carry the scars of your betrayal, but we will not let that stop us. Because the Devourers do not care who we are. They do not care for our hate, our history, our pride. They only care to feed. And if we do not stand together, then none of us will stand at all." The message spread like fire. Some still doubted. But many began to hope. For the first time, the galaxy saw not a myth, not a ghost, but a force of will that refused to break. And just as hope began to rise, the alarm sounded. Scouts on the edge of the outer rim reported movement, massive, unnatural, crawling through the void. The Devourers had arrived in numbers greater than anyone had feared. Their dark shapes stretched across the stars, blotting out the light, their presence heavy like a nightmare made real. The galaxy had no more time for debates. No more time for doubt. The Alliance was now their only shield. On their silent armada, the humans powered their engines. The command was simple, steady, and final. Prepare yourselves. The reckoning begins.